Hello again, my friends, and some of you, my fellow invisibles. Yes, that's because the Invisible College is actually a real thing. And at the end of this, I'll tell you how you can join it if you want to. But now I want to continue with our journey. And if you watch the first part of this series that I'm now doing, it's called The Lost Sheep of the House of Israel. That's the first episode, and it concerned my trip to Israel and how I met a strange old man with his Bible who put me on the track of certain things. And I was also advised by a lady while I was out there that I should really start to search for my own culture in the West before even contemplating going to India. So before we go on, I just want to tell you a little bit more about my own story, because I do realise that credibility in these matters is very, very important. Now, if you're a Christian, you're told that you need three things. You need faith, hope and charity. You're told that. And faith is symbolised by the cross. You've got to believe in Jesus and the crucifixion and the resurrection. Hope is symbolised by an anchor. The anchor that holds tight, that you're going to be saved. And charity is symbolised by a heart. You'll see that all over the place in different things. But I want to ask you again about what do we mean by faith? People say, well, I believe in Jesus, I believe in the Holy Ghost, I believe in God, I believe in the Catholic Church, or whatever. But that word that we use, faith, is not what's written in Latin. The Latin word is, I believe, is credo. And we get from that creed, the Apostles' Creed, I believe. But credo is also the root of credible and incredible. For something to be credible, it needs to have evidence that you can believe in it. So the scientists will tell you this. Scientists will say, well, you're believing in dogma and nonsense. We believe in what we can measure, what we can calibrate, and what we know to be true through experimentation. It has credibility. To believe in the supernatural is incredible. You cannot believe it. Well, I would go further than that and say, yes, you can, if you have things that are credible. You've had experience, for example. If you go on YouTube, you'll see many different videos of people who've had out-of-body experiences when they died and they came back. And these experiences are all different, but they have certain things in common. They remember coming out of their body and seeing their body there, lifeless, and then they're drawn to some place. It might be a lovely garden, it might be a palace, it might be a horrific place. And then they go through a tunnel of light and they meet God and the angels, and it's full of love and it's wonderful, and they maybe meet old relatives and so on. And then they're told, no, it's not your time yet, you've got to go back. Oh no, I don't want to go back. Yes, you need to go back, you haven't finished that life yet. So they come back into their body and they carry on with their life, perhaps having to go through awful period of healing to get back. And then they are able to tell their story. Now, for them, that is credible. They've been out of their body and they've seen things. Scientists will say, well, how can I believe you? I don't know anything about this. It's nonsense, just your brain idly doing things. You weren't really dead, but your brain activity was doing something still, and that's what you remember. Well, they have got no reason for saying that. The person was certified dead. Sometimes they even wake up in the morgue. So it's just a difference of view. And the scientists close their minds, or some of them anyway, and the person that had the experience say, I know because I know. Well, that sort of thing has happened to me. There's certain things that I know because I know. And one of the things I know because I know was at the beginning, or the early period of my journey, even before I went to Israel actually, I had certain experiences. One of those experiences that I haven't told people about this before, but I'm going to share it with you now because I think I have enough evidence to prove what I'm saying. I was in bed and a voice came to me and told me to sit up. So I sat up, and the voice, which I understood as being an angel, spoke to me. Now I am somewhat clairaudient, clairvoyant, psychic. Yeah, I don't play that card. That's not my thing. I don't go out reading people's fortunes or anything like that. I don't. But I am guided. I have no doubt about that. I would not have found the things I have if I weren't. But anyway, this angel spoke to me and he said, "Adrian, what do you want in life?" And I had no hesitation in saying to him, "I want wisdom." And the angel said, "Well, I'm really overjoyed to hear that. Most people ask for money, or they ask for a great love life, or some other thing like that. Because you've asked for wisdom, you'll be given those other things, but you'll become wiser than Solomon." Now, that's why I haven't spoken about this before, because it seems so boastful. I mean, Solomon, come on, I'm only Adrian. I'm just this English guy who, very inconspicuous, not famous at all. I haven't been a great scientist or anything like that. But that's what the angel said to me. So that was at the beginning of my journey. Now, on another occasion, just after I left university in the summer after that, a friend of mine and I, a Jewish friend called David, who had had the room next door to me in the college at one point, we decided we wanted to go on holiday. We were going to go on holiday together, and we were going to go hitchhiking in Sweden. Now, that might seem like a strange idea, but we had met a Swedish girl, very beautiful, I have to say, who invited us to come back to Uppsala, which is the university city, or it's like the Oxford of Sweden, north of Stockholm. And she lived there, she came from there. And she said, "I'll be going back there, and come and see what Sweden's like." And we thought, well, if they're anything like her, bring it on. So anyway, we went to Sweden, took the ferry across to Gothenburg, and we had all sorts of adventures there. We hitchhiked from Gothenburg to a place called Alingsås, where David knew some people who he had met in Turkey before. And one of those people was Bengt Alfredsson, who I became great friends with. We carried on our contact through letters, and I went out there a number of times. And I even lived in Alingsås for a period, for some months. And Bengt was an artist who had the most incredible skill in painting. And much, much later, in the 1990s, we're talking about 1972 here, 71 we're talking about when we first went to Sweden. In the 1990s, Bengt painted these amazing pictures for me, which I've put in some of my books. For example, where is it? Yes, in Signs in the Sky, this book I did here, published in the year 2000. If I can find his painting. Where is it? Yes. He painted this for me. It's called The First and the Last. And it's actually concerning the beginning of the book of Revelation. So you have a Christ-like figure here, and you have St. John here, having the vision of the Revelation with the 7 candlesticks around him. And he even painted me into the picture, but you can't see it here because they cut it on a doorway. Anyway, that was a very important thing. So if we had not gone to Sweden, I would not have met Bengt, who was a great friend of mine. He passed on 2015, I think. So he's up there. Hello, Bengt, if you're around. You know, I really valued our friendship. Now, then we went to Uppsala, and we spent some time there. We met some American draft dodgers, actually, and camped out on the floor of one or two of them, actually, at different times. And we had some great times in Uppsala, which I won't go into. But David and I decided we wanted to go north. You know, we'd come there to visit and see what Sweden was like. And we'd heard about this place called Kiruna, right up in the Arctic Circle, where the Lapps, or the Sami people, I can't call them Lapps anymore. It used to be called Lapland. It's now called, you know, I don't know if they still call it Lapland, but they call it, the people say Sami. Anyway, we decided we're going to hitchhike up to Kiruna. So everyone thought we were mad. It was September by then. And we set out from Uppsala, putting out our thumbs, and we had our tent. So we managed to get, literally, we started finding it was very, very easy to hitchhike. And at one point, we even got out of one car, and there was another car parked maybe 100 yards further up, and there was a guy called us over. As we got out of our car, he called us over and said, "Where are you going?" We said, "Well, we're going to Kiruna." He said, "Well, I'm going most of the way there. Come with me." So we went with him. And we found this journey. We did it in 6 lifts and within 24 hours. And literally, it seemed like we were being guided. And we looked at each other and we said, "Well, what's going on here? You know, it feels like God's looking after us." We hadn't ever experienced anything like this before. Anyway, he dropped us off at a crossroads or whatever it was. And we found ourselves, it was night time by then, we found ourselves in the middle of nowhere, north of the Arctic Circle, or just below it. And it was cold, and we were only wearing summer clothes. And there was a frost on the ground and started to snow slightly. We thought, oh no, we've really misjudged this one. And we'd stopped off at a cafe, you know, not long before, where they had a stuffed bear and knives for sale and things like this that they have in these more obscure parts of Sweden. I mean, we thought, do they have bears? Anyway, we started walking along the road. We thought we'd better keep going, otherwise we might, you know, die of hypothermia. We better keep our blood circulating. And anyway, we're walking along and suddenly there's been no traffic at all. And then suddenly a great big lorry came up and the guy pulled up. Couldn't speak a word of English, but he indicated to us to get some water from a stream that was just nearby. So he gave us a flask. He needed to put some water into his radiator in the lorry. So we filled up the flask for him and brought it back, and he put the water in the radiator. And he said, come on. And he was going to Kiruna. So we arrived in Kiruna, I think it was something like 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning maybe. And there we were in this town in the far north of Sweden, in what to us felt like winter. We had an address to go to, we went there, and we spent a few days in Kiruna, and then we took a train from there to Narvik. It wasn't worth trying to hitchhike. Narvik's in Norway, and there's a famous railway line from Kiruna to Narvik, very scenic, that was used in the Second World War by the Germans to take iron ore to Kiruna to load on ships there to bring back to Germany. Sweden was a very big supplier of iron ore, still is. So we went to Narvik. Eventually we found our way back. We separated after Narvik, and because it was a bit difficult hitchhiking together, but we both found our way back to Uppsala, and eventually we came back to England. So I'm telling you this because this was a feeling of God's hand on our shoulders. You know, we talked about this. And we had other strange experiences in Sweden as well. It was a very magical time, you could say. Then I came back to England, and I worked for a time in the pharmaceutical industry as a rep. But I realised that was not for me. I didn't feel right with it. It didn't feel ethical. I couldn't do that. And so I left that job, and another friend of mine and I set out by bicycle, I talked about this, to go to Israel. Again, I felt I was being guided, and when I came back from Israel, I'd been put on this track, as I said in the last lecture, to start investigating the mysteries of the West, or particularly of England. And one of the things the guy had talked to me about was what's called the Stone of Destiny, or they also call it Jacob's Pillow, or Jacob's Pillar. And this is the coronation stone of Great Britain, if you've never heard of it. And at that time it was kept in the coronation seat in Westminster Abbey. Now, I'd never seen this and never even heard of it before he told me about it. But anyway, here's a picture of it. You can see the coronation seat, and now you can see the stone inside it. And this is the official guide to Westminster Abbey, which I bought in 1973, which was when I came back from Israel. And there's information in this that you won't find in the modern guide. And I also point out, look at Westminster Abbey there, all dirty and smut covered. That's how it used to be. And that's how most of London used to be when I was young. And they started washing it, cleaning it, sandblasting with water. And now when you go and you see these buildings like the Houses of Parliament and Westminster Abbey and Trafalgar Square and all those places, Whitehall, we have these lovely, pristine stone buildings, but they didn't used to look like that. They were covered in soot from all the coal fires of London that have been burning for centuries. And people used to heat their houses with coal when I was young. They didn't have central heating. Very, very few people had central heating. So all the chimney pots would have coal soot coming out. And I think it was 1956, 55, 56, they passed the Clean Air Act, which banned burning coal in urban areas like London. So I remember before that going to school, it must have been 56, when you'd go to school and there'd be thick pea soup of fog everywhere, and you couldn't see more than a couple of yards in front of you. That all's gone now. You don't get those pea soup of fogs, but they used to be talked about in the movies and so on. So I started my investigations into what this guy had told me about. One of the other things he told me about was this idea of the British being descended from the lost tribes of Israel. And I thought he was joking. Come on, we're Anglo-Saxons and Celts and Vikings, and we have got other mixtures in us, but Israelites? I never heard of such a thing. But he also talked about the royal family, and he talked about what they believe. And he said that they believe that they're descended from King David. And when I went back, as I said, I went to I found the headquarters of British Israel, quite by chance, serendipity. Again, I was being guided, I think, and I bought this book from them. It's called The Royal House of Britain, An Enduring Dynasty, by the Reverend W.M.H. Milner, M.A. And he's done a remarkable job. I don't agree with all of it, but there's a very interesting chart in the back, a big chart you can see here. And it says here, the Royal House of Britain, an illustrious lineage. And it starts in the left-hand corner here. I don't know if you can see that. I'll put it close. It starts with Judah. Judah was one of the sons of Jacob Israel, and it traces all sorts of lineages from him. Some are in the Bible, some are in other places, and it traces all of this, and it comes right back down to the bottom to... At the bottom here, he has George VI. I don't know if you can see. So he's tracing various different houses that have come together with different lineages and leading back to this guy Judah, saying that they are descended from this the same guy who's the patriarch of the Jews. I'd never heard of anything like this. It seemed weird to me, but one of the things you discover is that the emblems of the royal family, the emblems, you see these on the Royal Standard actually. You've got the harp of Ireland. Yeah, can you see the harp there? And you've got the lion of Scotland, that one is, the rampant lion. And you have the lion and the unicorn there. These are the lion symbols and the harp symbols are to do with King David. So you have to wonder, is there something in this? What's all this about? So I started investigating, and I investigated the Stone of Destiny, and much, much later, if I got a copy of it here, I have, yes. You find the Stone of Destiny now in Edinburgh Castle. You can see Edinburgh Castle there. You can see a picture of the stone. And I've written a whole book on the Stone of Destiny, exploring the traditions, how it came to Ireland, how it was taken from Ireland to Scotland and from Scotland to England and then back up to Scotland. But I investigated something much more. I investigated certain secrets to do with the geometry, which I will explain to you in later lectures, but I found out the connections between the stone and a certain triangle and how the stone can be used to generate a pyramid, if you know what you're doing. This is the secret Kabbalah, or the secret essence of the Stone of Destiny, and why it's so important and why it's been preserved all this time. And the legend is that it was taken from Israel at the time of the fall of Jerusalem, along with the princesses of the royal house, to Ireland. And one of the princesses married the King of Ireland. And the Irish at that time also had a link with Israel, but we'll go into that another time. And then later, the Scots who came from Ireland went to the western part of Scotland, the islands there, at the time of Columkill, who's St. Columba, and he founded a monastery on the small island of Iona, and the neighbouring islands and also the coastland along there became the first kingdom, the kingdom of the Dalriada Scots, and they took over the stone to there, and later the Dalriada Scots married into the kingdom of the Picts, who occupied Caithness, the northeastern part of Scotland, and formed a unified kingdom. And later, that unified kingdom conquered and absorbed the southern part of Scotland to make one nation of Scotland. I cover all of that in this book. And the Stone of Scone was taken to taken to Scone or Scone, Scone Castle, and the kings of Scotland used to be crowned on that, the kings of all the Scots. And then it was taken by Edward I to England, and he had a special chair made for it, which we saw the picture of just now. And for 700 years, that's interesting, it's exactly 700 years, from 1296 to 1996, it resided in England. 700 exactly. And then John Major, the then Prime Minister, who had the charisma of a bank clerk, very, very stupidly decided that he was going to send it back to Scotland in the hope that that would win him some support and votes among the Scots, who were never going to vote for him anyway, or for the Conservatives, but he sent the stone back. And that was very damaging, I believe, to Britain as a whole. It signified the breakup of our nation. You're sending back, you're saying to Scots, there's your stone, go your own way. And sure enough, he lost the next election. Tony Blair came in. One of the first things he did was to establish a new Scottish Parliament and a new house in Wales, the Senedd they call it, the sitting, and gave a vast degree of autonomy to these two parts of Britain, separate from England. He didn't give a separate parliament to England, by the way. There's, all the countries of the United Kingdom still meet in Parliament in Westminster, but only those Celtic parts, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, have their own separate parliaments as well. The English don't. Very peculiar. And he also completely messed up the Constitution and the House of Lords, and he caused chaos, and he threw open the gates of Britain, and we started getting mass immigration, which has been, changed the nature of the country. And it's carried on right through the following Conservative period. So that whereas when I was a boy, I would say we were probably 99% white British, of some Celts, some English. Also, there were other Europeans who had come here and settled here generations ago, people like the Huguenots. But there were very, very few people from other ethnic groups. Now, the British are only about 75% white British, and the other groups are growing at a very rapid pace, partly through immigration and partly through having a much higher birth rate. So the whole nature of Britain has changed as a result of the acts of first John Major and then Tony Blair. And I believe this is one of the one of the omens, you could say, one of the signs that we are living at a change of our civilization completely, and it is going to change. There's many other things we're going to talk about in other lectures, but I just wanted to bring you forward on that point, that we are living at a time when the Britishness of the British is being challenged and being reduced. And I should add that also applies to the British diaspora. We have a diaspora, and whether you like it or not, America, USA, was founded by the British. That's why the American law system is very much modelled on the British system. It's got differences of its own. It's also got a certain looking back to the Roman Republic and the way things were organised there. But it's very much organised on the British system without the monarchy. The monarchy was banished. Canada, Australia and New Zealand are also diaspora countries of the British, primarily, to a greater or lesser extent. And they still have the Queen on their currency. Not the Queen anymore, it's the King now, King Charles. And we also still have the Commonwealth. And I'm going to talk to you more about that in later lectures. So I want you to see something here, that there is something special about Britain. And I'm going to show you more that indicates the specialness, to do with the Stone of Destiny, to do with early migrations a long time ago, the secrets of places like Stonehenge, the connection with the pyramids of Egypt, the Holy Grail, the coming of the Holy Grail, what that's all symbolising, the Arthurian tradition, what that's all about, and how Britain became the focus of a kind of free Christianity that was taken to the four corners of the world in preparation. The British Empire became a vehicle, just as the Roman Empire had been a vehicle for the Christianization of Europe. If it hadn't been for the Roman Empire, it would not have been able to spread the way it did. But once you had Constantine in 325, I think it was, AD, declaring that Christianity was the new religion of the Roman Empire, it was everywhere. You might not like Roman Catholicism, but that was how the whole of Europe, not just Europe, also the eastern provinces of Rome as well, which is now the Eastern Orthodox bloc. That was also made Christian by the edicts of Constantine. There were Christian churches already, but they weren't having to hide in the shadows anymore. They were now official. It was the official religion. And the same kind of thing happened with the British Empire, which took the Christian religion from Europe all over Africa into Asia to parts of America. The Spanish had done the same thing in the Spanish parts of America, and the Portuguese as well. So it wasn't entirely the British, but we took it to places where it had never been seen before, into darkest Africa and into parts of Asia. So this was all, again, prophetic, that Jesus is not going to return until the gospel had been preached all over the world. And many, many missionaries, you've heard of David Livingstone, he's just one. There were hundreds, maybe thousands of missionaries going out, setting up schools, setting up hospitals, teaching people of other nations the Christian way. So that was all part and parcel, and that was the duty as seen by the people of earlier generations of the nation, of the British nation. They looked upon their empire as having been God-given and for a purpose, that the purpose was to serve God by bringing the gospel to all nations. So that, I think, is enough for today. I've got far more to tell you about on all sorts of subjects. So stick with me on this. You'll find it fun. You'll find it. I'm not a preacher man. I'm not going to give you roastings, about behaviour and all that. That's for you to work out. And if you don't believe in God, well, that's also for you to work out. But I'm going to show you the evidence for why maybe you should, and why you should see that the Bible and the Christian message that comes out of the Bible, and the Jewish message too. And actually before that, long before that, in ancient Egypt, I say ancient, I mean Old Kingdom and before, you had also part of this rescue mission that has actually come from the stars. And I'm going to tell you much more about that another time. Now, if you're interested in joining the college, it's very easy to do that. You do it through patreon.com, and Adrian G. Gilbert, I think is the right label. You'll find me anyway, Adrian Gilbert. You can look me up in Patreon. You'll find it there. I also have a website called Invisible College. That's all one word, .uk. And you'll find a lot of information there. And you'll also find links to a lot of lectures I put up on YouTube. And you should watch those now if you're going to have them for free, because I'm going to be taking a lot of those down. And they will be going out on discs or other streaming services. YouTube is not serving me that well, and I have to find other ways of getting this information out. So that's all I have for you today, and I wish you well, and speak again. Bye-bye.